The NFL Coach of the Year discussion is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting conversations we can have about the 2022 NFL regular season. There have been several head coaching masterclasses, and people seem to be very passionate about who they feel should win. Nick Sirianni has elevated Jalen Hurts to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL and has led the Eagles to 14 wins. Kyle Shanahan has led the 49ers to 13 wins despite being on his third quarterback, who also happens to be Mr. Irrelevant. Doug Pederson has helped Trevor Lawrence realize his potential and has turned the Jaguars around from whatever you want to call the Urban Meyer situation. Finally, there's Brian Daboll, who made some people start to believe that Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback and led the Giants to the playoffs when everyone expected them to be picking in the top 10, including myself, who predicted the Giants would win 5 games this season. In this video, I'm going to break down each coach's case and why I think they deserve consideration and potentially why they shouldn't win it. First up, we have Nick Sirianni, who's atop the betting odds and has orchestrated an impressive Eagles season. The steps Jalen Hurts has taken to improve his game under Sirianni has been incredibly impressive. He went from a below average NFL passer to completing almost 67% of his passes. Then there's also something to be said for the fact that the Eagles finished with the best record in the NFL and where they finished them in statistical categories. The Eagles had the third most productive offense in the NFL when it comes to yards, third best scoring offense in the NFL, finished with the second least yards allowed on defense, finished with the number 8 scoring defense in the NFL, finished third in turnover differential, and had the most sacks in the NFL by far. The Eagles accomplished a lot this season, but Sirianni would not be my personal pick for Coach of the Year for a couple reasons. For starters, the Eagles have the most well-rounded roster in the NFL, which can be attributed to Howie Roseman more than it can be Nick Sirianni. Their offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. They have 2 elite receivers, have one of the better tight ends in the NFL, have a very solid running back, have an elite quarterback, have a very good front 7, and have probably the best secondary in the NFL. I think the other coaches that are up for Coach of the Year would win 13 games with this roster at their disposal. Then there's also the fact that when Nick Sirianni was forced to play without Jalen Hurts for 2 games and Gardner Minshew was leading the way, who's still a very solid backup, the Eagles lost both those games. With this good of a roster, I think this is a slight knock on Nick Sirianni's argument for winning Coach of the Year. In a direct comparison, Kyle Shanahan was on his 3rd string quarterback this season with an incredible roster and finished the season with 13 wins. The team never skipped a beat despite an inexperienced 7th round rookie leading the way. Next up, we have Doug Pederson. There were some people doubting Trevor Lawrence's future as an NFL superstar after his rookie season, and under Doug Pederson, he now looks like a top 7 quarterback in the NFL. Then there's also a lot to be said for the fact Doug Pederson led this Jaguars team to the playoffs after the Jaguars finished with the worst record in the NFL in back-to-back seasons. It is an accomplishment to have that type of turnaround. Now let's get into some of the circumstances surrounding the Jaguars season and why I don't think he really deserves the award. The only real reason the Jaguars made it to the playoffs this year was because they were in the worst division in football. The Colts had a high school football coach coaching their team and won 4 games. The Texans finished with the 2nd worst record in the NFL, at times having 3 quarterbacks play for them in 1 game. And the Titans were far from how good people thought they would be heading into the season due to injuries and, in my opinion, poor roster management decisions. Then there's also the fact Pederson has losses to the Commanders, Texans, Colts, Broncos, and Giants on his resume, and he is in direct competition with Daboll for the award. For these reasons, Pederson doesn't deserve to be the Coach of the Year in my opinion. Now, there are 2 coaches in my opinion who seriously deserve the award, and I would lean towards one of them winning it. First, there's Kyle Shanahan. It is incredible Kyle Shanahan has been able to win 13 games this season, considering he was forced to go to his 3rd quarterback, also happened to be a rookie, who also happened to be the last pick of the NFL draft. We have never seen a quarterback drafted that late in the draft to be this successful ever, let alone in his rookie season. Any other quarterback ever drafted with the last pick of the draft has never played in the NFL, and the only other 7th round quarterbacks to ever make any significant waves in the NFL are Ryan Fitzpatrick and Matt Castle. It is incredible what Kyle Shanahan has gotten out of Brock Purdy. On the defensive side of the ball, the 49ers also had the best scoring defense in the NFL and the best defense in the NFL in yards allowed. Shanahan deserves to win this award, and I won't be mad if he does, but the reason he wouldn't be my choice is because his roster is incredible, which makes it easier to win when your quarterback is constantly changing. On defense, Nick Bosa is the best defensive player in the NFL. Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the NFL, and from top to bottom, the entire defense is talented. On offense, Trent Williams has been an All-Pro. Christian McCaffrey has been an All-Pro. Deebo Samuel has been an All-Pro. George Kittle has been an All-Pro. Kyle Juszczyk is a 7-time Pro Bowler, and Brandon Ayuk is a very solid receiver who had his first 1,000-yard season. There is proven talent all over the 49ers roster, which allowed them to sustain the several injuries they had at the quarterback position, which leads to my Coach of the Year. Brian Daboll has to be the Coach of the Year. Most people expected the Giants to be one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL due to the salary cap hell Dave Kettleman put them in and their overall talent built a void roster. In spite of all the doubters, Brian Daboll added 5 wins to the Giants' win total from 2021, having the first winning season since 2016, and did all of that while playing in the best division in football. Then there's the fact Daniel Jones went from an embarrassing excuse for an NFL starting quarterback to basically guaranteeing himself at the bare minimum a 2 to 3 year deal. Brian Daboll did that. The defense under Daboll and Wink Martindale, while the numbers aren't spectacular amongst the rest of the league, has been good enough, also despite key injuries to Azeez Ojulari, Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney, and Leonard Williams throughout the season. Then there's the fact the Giants have competed hard in every single game they've been in this season. Only 3 of their losses were quote-unquote blowouts, and they were 8-3 in one-score games. When again, most people were expecting this Giants team to be picking CJ Stroud or Bryce Young in the top 5. Finally, think again about what Daboll inherited. The Giants had the worst record in the NFL from 2017 to 2021 and even went on to win a playoff game against the 13-win Vikings, although I know the playoffs don't really count towards the Coach of the Year discussion. I think with the Coach of the Year award, you have to take into consideration what a team's record expectations were at the beginning of the year, because when a team was expected to have a top 5 pick and now won a playoff game, that is entirely due to the coach getting the most out of his players. Brian Daboll needs to be the Coach of the Year, but I won't be mad if Kyle Shanahan wins it. Let me know what your guys' opinions are down in the comments section. Use code THICK on Underdog Fantasy. They will match your first deposit up to $100 with our code. Like the video, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and we will see you in our next video.